Alright, so this is the double step fascia, the curve fascia that we'll be doing in this video. So you'll see we'll do a template and then we'll bend 4 pieces to make that step fascia. So I'll show you guys a step by step. Here's a quick video where I'm going to show you guys how I personally do a curve 2-step fascia. That's my personal method that I've developed after doing a few. If there's a better method and an easier way, let me know for sure. But this is how I do it. I use the regular brake and the Wuko bender and the disco bender, and everything ends up being an assembly. When you start thinking outside the box and start thinking about, making assemblies and clips for everything to clip into one another, what you can achieve with regular aluminum is pretty outstanding. I'm assuming this would apply also to steel and copper and all those other fancier materials, zinc, that I've personally never used, unfortunately. I've seen some unreal stuff that's been done all around the world from some very talented artists. I'm assuming they're using methods that are even more in-depth than what I'm going to show you guys here. But I just thought I'd share with you guys. So basically, what we're going to do, let's say this is our soffit. So we're looking at it from the side. So the curve would be going this way. We'll have our soffit here. We'll have our 6-inch fascia. In our case, this is only a 3/4 inch plywood that's screwed and nailed into the 2x6 on the overhang. And then we'll have a 3/4 inch plywood here that's about 3 inches as well, that's curved to give it that step. And then we'll have our standing seam roof that curls back 3/4 inch. What we want to do is we want to come do a fascia that goes like this, and behind, and gets clipped over the roof. In order to do that, I'm going to do 2 assemblies of 2 pieces. So in total, there's going to be 4 pieces. The lower one will go behind the 3/4 inch strip plywood at the top, and then it'll have a first little bend. So basically, the first piece that we're going to install is going to look like this, with a 90-degree bend, and then we'll create another piece on the brake that's like this and that curls like that. That'll give us about 1/8 of an inch reveal here that we're going to come and crimp together here to make an assembly. So that'll give us a nice smooth line, and this piece can be a little bit longer to tuck in behind the 3/4 inch strapping. For the second piece, which is the one that requires the more precision because we need accuracy on the top and accuracy on the bottom, we'll do about the same, but add an extra bend. So we'll go 1/2 inch at the top here, where it's going to get hooked onto the standing seam, go down about 3.5, another 1/2 inch in, because we only have 3/4 inch that we need to wrap around. And then we'll make another piece like we did here, that's going to be 5/8, 7/8, and a 1/2 inch hem bend around. So these will be the pieces that we'll be installing up top. So I'm going to show you step by step how I do it. All right, so as you'll see here, I braced my strapping piece, my 3/4 inch plywood that's going to act as my step fascia, the top part. I braced that with pieces of strapping so that I can unscrew it and remove it to use it as a template to mark my aluminum. All right, so now that we have our template here, I've taken it down, and I'll transfer my bottom line of the curve onto my aluminum. So because I'm marking from the back, I need to be transferring this backwards as well, so that everything lines up and matches up. So I know that I need about 4 inches from the bottom here, so I'll give myself enough room like this, and then I'll transfer my line approximately, and that'll be the top of the curve. So I'll want to be about 1/2 inch above that line so that I tuck behind that piece of strapping. So I'm just marking that up as a reference line. And then I'll make a bend along the bottom to give it some rigidity, and then I'll bring it back up on the fascia with the curve cut, so then I'll be able to tack it up against the roof. and then I'll be able to trace a perfect line based on the roof. So that'll give me an accurate line that I need to cut and bend on. Since this piece is about 12 feet long, and even giving it one bend makes it very flimsy, just to give myself a chance to bring it up to the front of the house, put it up, trace my line, I just cut a piece of strapping here, and I'll put a few screws in, so that'll give rigidity to the aluminum, and it'll make it easier to transfer my line and to hold it up. This whole section underneath here is scrap piece, so it's just there until we transfer the line. So adding a little strapping like that will allow me to carry it around without having to fight gravity, and gives it a little more rigidity to transfer the line. Little methods like that just to help you save your pieces. So as you can see here, I made, when I cut it, I didn't trim it probably following the curve, but that'll be behind the piece of 3/4 inch step that we'll be doing. So as long I drew a line that's 1.5 inches away from where the strapping, the 3/4 inch plywood will start. So as long as I'm covering in at least a 1/2 inch, then we'll be good. So I just tacked in a few screws to hold my piece in place, and we put the strapping on the bottom so that holds it firmly in place. So I'll go behind, push, and then mark the backside, and that'll give me a straight, perfect, accurate line to follow to bend that lip to do the return against the soffit. So I unscrewed it too quickly there, but obviously the line is not in place anymore, but I just thought I'd put it back up just to show you guys. So I traced it, pushed the aluminum on the front, and then obviously I'm off my line where I re-screwed it there, but this was accurate when I first marked it. So I push it against tight, and then I mark it with my pencil to give me a true line. All right, so we have our line that I've traced from behind. I removed that temper piece of strapping, so I'll get to cutting 3/4 inch off of that line. And then we'll get bending on the using the Wuko. Cut 3/4 inch away, make sure that that line is nice and consistent, because that's where the Wuko bender rides on, so that line is critical. The line at the top is a little off, like I explained previously, because it'll be hidden behind that step 3/4 inch plywood. So that's, we'll trim that up and make sure it's good to go. Keep it a little bit longer, and do the final trim once I'm up top. So I'll measure from my line here. I have about 5/8. So I'll make myself little lines just to confirm where I should be trimming back just a little bit. Over here I have 3/4, so I'll trim off. So up to here I'm at 5/8, and then here I'm at 5/8. So this whole section here I'll trim up just to give me a consistent bending line. So I'll start here, here. So the more precise we are on that, the better, the more accurate it'll give us the result, simply because this is where our Wuko is going to be riding on. So the goal is to have the perfect shape, because as soon as we try to push up or push the middle up, it's going to tend to kink. If anything, I think you're better off pushing the middle up a little bit more as opposed to the sides, because when you push the ends up, then it tends to pull the material, to push the material in, and it has nowhere to go, and that's where it starts oil canning. Whereas if you go the other way, then you're stretching the material, so that should, in theory, help it. But the best idea is to really have as smooth of a line, as accurate of a curve as possible, so that you just set it in place, and that's where it needs to go. Good. So now I calculated that I had at my minimum 5/8. So we'll take the Wuko bender, set it to 5/8, and then we'll start doing our fold. I'm gonna try to overfold it so that in the end when I put my second piece on, it sits a little past the 90 degrees. So in the end, if for some reason my curve is not smooth against the soffit, I can have that bottom tab kind of folding out to follow the soffit, as opposed to forcing it up and then creating bends. So whereas if I'm perfectly at 90 degrees, then I might have, a 1/4 inch gap or something. So if I overbend it, that'll give me a little bit of room to play with. This is the most tedious part, to be honest. I don't know if the pros of the Wuko bender have a better technique. I always find on my first house doing this kind of work with this tool, that's the part I find the most annoying, trying to find a way to follow that curve while having a gap. Maybe I should put 2x6 underneath and clamp down the material. I find it very challenging to hold in place, especially on a long piece like that. It has more radius. Once it's bent to 90 degrees, then it's easier with the disco bender. As you can see here, it's starting to do a lot of banana. I'll try and finish it with the disco bender. Usually I find this smooths it out, so you gotta take your time. And then if need be, I'll make a few notches to relieve the pressure. If you had a stretcher, you could stretch it, but I do not. So I'll try this technique and see how that works out. So I'm bending it right now with the disco bender. I find the disco bender tends to take out a lot of imperfections from the first step, and I'll keep rolling past the 90-degree step like I had previously mentioned, so that when we flip our other piece, we're spinning over a little bit. As you can see, it's crooked like crazy. I want about 3 inches and 3/4, so I'll trim the top here because I got a lot of excess material here, so I got 4 and 3/4, so I'll go to 3 and 3/4. I'll make myself a rapid line, and then I'll be able to trim all this unnecessary material, which should also relieve, I think, a little bit of pressure to remove that banana effect. So 3 and 3/4, so here is good. So to try and get rid of that little bit of a curve, I'll try and cut just halfway through, and then I'll have that piece that's gonna flip over top, that over the I'll fix that up. See if I can stretch it a little bit initially. If I don't have to cut it, then that would be best. Going very gently, trying to manually stretch it. The pros that do this day in, day out are probably laughing at me right now. But just doing what I can with what I have. I have used a stretcher before and never had fantastic results, so I want to try different techniques. I'm assuming if we're doing 10 every 8, 16, 12, 15 inches or so, just to see if I can relieve a little bit of tension on that bottom lip. And we'll have our second piece that's going to slide over top of that anyway. So yeah, I think that'll help smooth it out once it's installed in place. Alright, so we'll bend, we have that return piece bent already. So what we're going to do is we're going to insert a clip piece with a double bend in the front here. We want it 1.25 inches, but I also want that's showing on the bottom. I want it to stick out about 1/8 inch in the front, so that'll hide any defect on that bottom line. Alright, so I only have a 10.6 inch here break, so I'll do it in 2 pieces just to cheat a little bit. Once it's up, we won't be seeing it, so I'll start flipping this on. So as you'll see here, I made 2 return bends with a longer tab here that you'll notice is about 1/8 of an inch shorter. So it'll sit against the back of the fascia, and then that lip will protrude in the front, about extending what I was talking about. So we'll start with one end. I'll take the 3-inch crimp that I forgot on the lift, and then I'll crimp that together, and we'll try and see install that, see how that fits on. Just finish crimping it so that assembles the 2 of them together. So as you can see here, I lined it up and I put a few screws just to make sure that it was placed where I wanted it to be. Now I'll remove those screws and put a few brad nails before I put the piece of strapping on top to do the second step. So it's a little bit on an angle and the bottom is a little bit the other way. We can see it from the top here, but once we're at the bottom, it'll look pretty smooth. So as you can see, the first step is done. On to the second step. It's looking pretty good from down below. It looks better from down below, obviously, than it does above. There's a few slight imperfections, but I'm pretty happy with this tight of a curve over almost 13 foot span. So obviously, on to the second step. So we'll pretty much restart the same process, except on the top bend, we'll be doing an inward bend and an outer bend where the steel flashing is the steel roof is gonna clip on. So I'll remark again my lower line, which has been our starting point from the beginning, and I'll keep myself off from the top now. About I'll go 4.5 inches, just to leave myself a little bit of room. We only need about 3/4 inch at the bottom, so go like up above, while it's still braced, I don't want to take it apart because this is kind of our line that we need. So I'll go install it and then I'll remove the pieces of strapping from it afterwards. All right, so I reinstalled the 3/4 inch plywood strapping step fascia where it's going to go. That allowed me to confirm the 3.5 inch height measurement. We'll do a 1/2 inch return at the top and a 1/2 inch return on the bottom with another second piece that's 7/8 that's going to wrap around that 1/2 inch return to finish off that lower edge. All right, so this is our second piece. You'll notice here that we did, we traced the bottom of our strapping then we confirmed that we need 3.5 inches distance. At the top we want a 1/2 inch, and at the bottom we want a 1/2 inch. So overall we need a 4.5 inches. Now you'll remember on the first piece, the top didn't matter because it was sliding underneath the 3/4 inch plywood. This one matters because it needs to clip behind the steel roof. So this one's a little bit trickier. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a block and transfer, so a 4-inch block, so I can transfer that line, and I'm going to run it across as efficiently as I can. And I'll trace that line, I'll trim that, and then I'll take that whole piece. I added a piece of strapping again to reinforce that while I'm carrying it. So I can lift it up and confirm that my curve is accurate. If it's not accurate, I'll be able to trim it at the top until I'm satisfied with it. So that gives me room to, I don't do anything, I'm not going to cut this side until I have that curve at the top line that I'm happy with. Once I have that done, I'll make my 1/2 inch bend that's going to go outwards away from the house. And then once I have that done, then I'll be able to reuse another block that's going to be, or the same block that's going to be 4 inches. I'll be able to ride along that lip that's going to give me an accurate line that I'll be able to cut and bend from that. So here I'm going to try and trace. It won't be easy because I don't have much to write on, so I got to take my time, try and be as smooth as I can, following the other line. I think now that I think of it, what would have been smart would have been the piece of strapping that I have that's going up is actually 3 1/4. So I could have used that piece of strapping, left it there, and taken a piece of strapping that's 3/4 and have ridden that along that piece to give me that curve. So now that I think of it, that's what I should have done. It would have been easier, but I'll make it work that way. So this should be the top. I should have a 1/2 inch reveal that's going to bend in, but I'll trim that accurately, and then I'll bring it up to see what that gives us on the roof. And if that's good, I'll bring it back here and get it down. So let's just go see if that physically looks not too bad. And I'll trim whatever I need to trim up top. Alright, so I just confirmed that the curve was what we needed. I had to trim from nothing to about 3/8 to nothing here. I'll finish trimming that up. Okay, and then I'll bend. I also marked where I was lining myself up, and I marked it on the roof as well so that I can reline myself up with that line whenever I go back. So now I'll bend the 1/2 inch bend on going out. That's going to be tucking underneath the standing seam roof, so it's going to clip over. So I'm going to bend that out about a little less than 90 degrees. So if there's a variance, then it won't be pulling down on the roof, and I can adjust it when I'm crimping it as well. So I'll do that first. Once I have that lip, I'll be able to take a block and run along that lip to transfer my line to the bottom. That'll be my cut line because I'll be including the 3.5 plus the 1/2 inch. So I'll be at 4 inches from that bend. I'll trim that, and then I'll be able to do the 1/2 inch bend going the other way. So I'll leave the piece of strapping there, and it'll just will hold up better while I'm doing this process. I'll unlock the bearings. These can swivel and follow the curve. can see in the video, it's a little wavy, but it's that's okay because the extending seam roof will clip right over, so that's going to hide all that. So there's no sense in being concerned about it. We'll put our efforts where they make a difference. So now I'll take back my 4-inch block again. And like you'll see now, I have a line, a smooth line, that the bottom of the kink is smooth, to run a line across, and they'll show me where I need to make my next bend. So running across like that, trying to keep it smooth and consistent. And this will be my cut line, and from that I'll do my downward stand at a 1/2 inch. So I'll see if I can cut it while it's still attached to the strapping here. Outside. Let's see what we have here. I think overall I have 4 on the dot, maybe 3 and 15, 16. So I'll do 4. So I'll do a little bit. I'll go with the 7/16 bend, just to give myself a little bit of leeway. Same here. Let's fold this up, start slowly again, take our time. That's it. So we'll do the assembly of our other trims like we've done previously. So here you'll see I made those a little bit smaller. So I got 7/8 overall and 3/4 inch. So I'll trim that square and we'll put that on. Almost. It doesn't seem to be bending as much, so I'll leave it as is. I won't cut the slits. You notice that we did 7/16 here as opposed to 5/8 for the other one, so that requires a little bit less material to fold over. So that's probably why it's reacting better. Take that along. before I crimp it, so that helps straighten it. We'll see here. There's a little bit of a reveal here. From the bottom you won't see much of it, and if there's any imperfections along that edge, that will hide that. Untwist the back. I miss all those days on the construction sites. So as you'll see here, we have our reveal here. The standing seam roof will clip right over top of that, so let's go install that and see how that looks. Alright, so here it is. Pretty freaking happy with this one. Obviously, like anything, it's always the last one that turns out the best. So you'll see here, there's obviously the gap. I don't know if you can see it because it's so bright outside, but there's a little bit of a gap, so I'll run a little bit of caulking along that line. That's going to hide the few brad nails that I've put up, and you won't see that from above because of the shadow line, but the rest is pretty good.